what was once referred to as the curse of Marty McSorley, but in fact is the curse of an entire nation. Everybody knows that hockey is essentially Canada's baseball.
Yes.
It is the national pastime. There is no other sport that even comes close to the Canadian people than the sport of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you need to know about the 1993 finals, because we got to look back before we can look forward.
Absolutely, Colin. No
the Stanley
question.
Cup Final.
That's right.
Not the finals. Final.
Yes.
Very important distinction. Very important distinction.
Singular. Yes.
So in 1993, there's a couple of things that you need to remember. First off, the Los Angeles Kings had Wayne Gretzky, which was by far Canada's most important export. Although no one wanted to export Wayne Gretzky, with the exception of Peter Pocklington, the owner of the Edmonton Oilers.
Yes, sir.
And with Wayne Gretzky came a defenseman by the name of Marty McSorley. Now, this guy was a bruiser. This guy was a big dude. This guy wore goalie-sized jerseys so that he could get them off quicker during a fight. So Marty McSorley comes to Los Angeles with Wayne Gretzky, and they play, and the Kings all of a sudden become contenders. They become really great. There's a couple of really interesting things that happen just from a statistical kind of like fun standpoint in 1993. In 1993, the Los Angeles Kings make it to their first final. The Canadiens make it to their, I believe it was like their 34th final. Okay? There is no organization in North American sports that has more titles than the Montreal Canadiens.
That's correct.
Nice try, New York Yankees.
I know that. That's the only one that comes within even hailing distance.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So, but here's the funny thing. That season was the 100th anniversary of the Stanley Cup, which was originally called the Dominion Cup of Canada. And it was named after Lord Stanley, who was in charge of the Dominion of Canada. And the Los Angeles Kings needed to beat 3 other Canadian teams in order to get to the final. In the semifinal, the Western Conference final, although it wasn't the Western Conference at the time. This is the days of the old Smythe division and whatnot.
Yes, sir.
They beat the Los Angeles Kings beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, everyone in Canada, literally everyone in Canada, wanted the Habs versus the Leafs in the final. That would have been the most Canadian thing ever to occur in the history of Canada. That would have driven... That would have literally, there would be no more Labatt's to be sold. There would be no more Molson. All of the Canadian beer would be sold, and everyone would be glued to their sets. But that didn't happen because the Los Angeles Kings beat the Maple Leafs, and they ended up playing in Montreal for games 1 and 2. They beat the Canadiens in game 1. And in game 2, they're going into the final 2 minutes of the game with a 1-goal lead. And it's looking pretty good. It's looking like they're about to go back to Los Angeles with a 2-0 lead in the Stanley Cup Finals. That's going to be pretty tough to beat. But here's what happens. About 2 minutes left in the game, the Montreal coach pulls aside the referee and says, "I want to measure Marty McSorley's stick."
That's Jacques Demers, famous Jacques Demers. Right. Yes.
Now, when we say measure the stick, we mean the curvature of the blade of the stick, the part that actually touches the puck. There's a rule that says that the curvature cannot exceed a certain measurement. And I'd never seen this before, but they pulled out some sort of weird rudimentary device.
Yes.
That measured the curvature of Marty McSorley's stick, and it turns out he was indeed playing with an illegal stick. He goes to the sin bin for 2 minutes. Canadians pull Patrick Waugh from the net. They have a 6-on-4. Not only do they score a goal within the final 2 minutes of the game, they score another goal within the final, I believe, the opening minutes.
Yes, the opening minute, 50-some-odd seconds in. Eric Desjardins lights the lamp.
Yes. And hearts break in Southern California. Everyone rises in jubilation in Montreal and a majority of Canada, with the exception of probably Toronto, because they would just want to see the Habs lose at all costs. And what ends up happening is Montreal ends up winning all the rest of the games. They come back to Los Angeles, they win the next games, and then they win the Cup in Montreal. So for years, as I was growing up a massive LA Kings fan, this was the curse of Marty McSorley. It was the curse of Marty McSorley's stick. If he had only not played with that curved stick, maybe we would have won the Stanley Cup.
But Colin Hanks, it's not just that. There's still to this day some people who feel Demers, the coach of the Canadiens, it's kind of weak to win that way. I think that's what Barry Melrose kind of said first blush after the game in Game 2, and also that he might have had some sort of mole within the Los Angeles Kings locker room to know which sticks were in fact illegal. It wasn't just by the eye test to see what McSorley was using in Game 1 and early in Game 2, that they knew. They knew for sure that if that was the stick chosen, it would be the one that would be illegal.
That is correct. I believe Barry Melrose was quoted as saying, Barry Melrose would not have made that call. And I'm telling you right now, Colin Hanks would not refer to himself in the third person like that.
Nicely done.
But yes, there was actually, years later, Luc Robitaille, who was one of our Hall of Famers for the Los Angeles Kings, who is still with the organization. He says that at one point a cop had come up to him in Montreal saying, I've got to get something off my chest. You know, they were measuring your guys' sticks in between periods before the games. And in fact, there was a rumor that the Habs even went so far as to pull the Kings stick box into their locker room and measure the sticks. So they knew that Marty was playing with an illegal stick, and Marty actually says there were a bunch of players that played with illegal sticks. So they were kind of sitting and waiting for the moment to sort of pull that card. And apparently Jacques Demers would have made that call because he did.
Colin Hanks here on the Rich Eisen Show. And to put a full button on this as to why we're discussing this right now, prior to Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight, between the Lightning, trying to repeat, and the Montreal Canadiens, is that a Canadian team, not just Montreal, a Canadian team has not won the Stanley Cup since that 1993 championship.
That is correct. And that is why actually the curse of Marty McSorley has now become the actual curse of the Dominion of Canada, the nation of Canada. Because not only has no team won, but you know the number of Canadian teams have actually the percentage of Canadian teams, I should say, has gone down within the league. In 1993, they were 33% of the league. Now they're down to 23% of the league. And not a single one of them has been able to win the Stanley Cup since 1993. The Canadiens, correct. Not the Canadians, the Canadiens.
Canadiens. So this might be the most important question of this interview, Colin, and maybe the most important question I've ever asked you because it's a crucial one. And it also looks into the window of your soul, Colin Hanks, because
I'm a Sagittarius and never on Sunday.
Outside of all that, since 1993, you've become a well-rounded man, Colin. You got married, you have children, you have a terrific career acting. You've got more now than you had in 1993. Are you still rooting for the Lightning to keep this Canadian curse going, Colin Hanks, all these years later? How much spike do you have in your system?
Hard.
Yeah.
Because I want to say, yes, of course, let's keep this curse going. Mm-hmm. There is part of me that loves that because this is one of my favorite stories. I wanted to do a 30 for 30 about this.
Yes.
There's just something about this, all of the conspiracy theories, the ins and outs, all of the simple facts about it I find just completely enthralling. But at the same time, I do love Canada. I am an adoptive son of Canada. I can sing "O Canada" in record time. I can name almost all of the CFL teams. I indeed love Molson's and Labatt's. But I got to say, I think I'm rooting for the Habs in this one, if only because of young Tyler Toffoli, former Los Angeles King, who's now playing for the Canadiens.
Okay. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.